Oh, they've done it! Steven Gerrard, an instant hero! Can you believe this? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. Welcome to episode 168, I guess, or 169, something like that. SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. How we doing, Jack?
I'm doing quite well. How was your international break, sir?
Populous? Is that a word? I don't know. Good. Baby arrived. Baby was healthy. Don't get much sleep anymore, but you know, it comes with the territory, I guess. But other than that, everything's good, man. How about you?
Well, it's nice that there's something much more meaningful causing restless nights instead of Schalke for you, lying awake thinking
Not
about our
just
current
Schalke.
situation. But
Schalke.
Congratulations to you and yours, Papa Carmen, twice over. Clearly the adult on this podcast. But, and once again, your wife, an absolute champ. Timing that up for the international break. I mean, couldn't have asked for it better. So we appreciate her support of the podcast as always. Nice to be back in the saddle. From the U.S. men's national team perspective, that international break was a complete waste of time, and not like a welcome reprieve from what we've been seeing at Schalke recently. So I was excited to get back to club football.
I could not agree more. Jacob, I see you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, international break was, there's some interesting games, right? Interesting results, but nothing that I cared about. What we care about is league play, and game this past Saturday was something. Highs and lows, for sure. We got a lot to talk about because we got the game, we got injuries, we got a hot seat to talk about. That it's been hot since he was hired, pretty much. And we got questions. We got questions from Reddit and Twitter as well, too. So got a lot to get into today. Let's get into it. The game, obviously, the Saturday or Sunday. It was Sunday. Excuse me. I don't know what day it is anymore, Jack. I don't even know what time it is. I guess Augsburg came out in a 4-2-2-2, or however you want to call it, 4-4-2, whatever you want to say. But thoughts on the lineup, because obviously the game will have a lot to get into, but lineup, Matriciani, Vandenberg, Yoshida, Oyan, Flick and Kraus, normal, Bolter, Drexler with the Twin Towers up top. Thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely saw it more as like a 4-2-2-2. Because I don't believe in the Dortmund game that we had the Tirada-Polter pairing yet, right? This is the first time we've had that unveiled.
Correct.
I have to go back.
They came on late.
Okay, so there you go. This had been something that had been hinted at actually for a while. Whether that was Polter's camp leaking that to the media or just random speculation, we know that there was some, potentially there were questions being asked about his playing time and that he may be potentially disgruntled or upset about that. And obviously he came out in the media, said all the right things, pretty much, or as well as he could. But there'd been some talk recently about whether or not we would ever see that pairing up top. We certainly saw it today. Whether or not it was effective is I think there's some pros and cons of it. I think part of that has to do with Kramer's game plan. We'll get more into that later. Drexler, he's largely been very good.
Playmaker. Who knew?
Yeah, I thought he was good again today. I thought it was actually one of Bolter's weaker performances in a while. But what are you going to do about that? You're still starting Bolter, pretty much whenever he's available. Generally speaking,
definitely now.
I think he's done very well this season so far. Ultimately, so everyone's going to have an off game. Kraus and Flick, still very solid overall, that pairing. The back line was pretty much what you would expect. Brunner still not available, correct? Yet, so he should be back maybe for next game, but wasn't for this one. And then Vandenberg, Yoshida, Oyan, and Schwallow. So the top is where the interest is. The back of it was pretty much as it has been for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you say what you want to say about Matriciani. He's done okay for us so far. Vandenberg's been the surprise, I think, of the defense. Obviously, Yoshida as well. But we got to see different faces of these guys this weekend. Only one of the back four was maybe the consistent one this weekend was Oyan. He seemed a little bit more back to himself, but still quite the crosses are not there. Kraus had another fantastic game. He's been one of our best players this year so far, and Drexler
absolutely
as well. Yeah, and I think with your comment about Turret and Poulter, I think ultimately it could work out. We saw glimpses of it, but they need the service. They need the proper game plan for that. Looking at the visitors, or not. In goal, really good goalkeeper. Ginkiewicz was at Union Berlin for a long time. Solid Bundesliga goalkeeper. Gumni Gavulov, the captain. Niederlechner, we all know him very well. Gruzo Demirovic, we should know him now. Berisha, Rekbesha, Iago, Bauer, and Han. Another name we're going to know now very well. Looking at this lineup originally when going to the game, Berisha and Niederlechner were the big ones for me outside of the goalie. Anyone that stood out for you? I mean, obviously this is an Augsburg team that's not Bayern, but they did beat Bayern.
Yeah, Giekewitz, I mean, had a good game against Bayern and I thought did pretty well today. Again, overall, Niederlechner, obviously we're familiar with. I was saying Demirovic and familiar with at the same time there. Rex Bajai. I mean, there's names that you're familiar with there. I think we had our guard up a little bit going into this one, given the result they just had against Bayern. But at the same time, this is like a team that we would expect to sort of be in competition with this season, potentially for our ultimate table finish placement. So weird the way this one turned out in certain ways, but yeah. And actually, the commentators talked about that too. They were talking about what was expected for this one, that it was going to be probably more end-to-end, a little bit more disorganized, and lack of technical ability. And I think the second half it definitely kind of went that way.
Yeah, passing accuracy would tell you that was the case because both teams were very poor. We were the mid to low 60s, and they were in the 50s.
Correct.
So
yeah, which has been an issue for us all season, as we said. I don't think there was a single player outside of the center backs or the goalie who had over 70% pass completion. I think there was a significant portion of our starting lineup that didn't have it didn't reach a pass completion percentage into the 60s. Just a lot of guys in the 50 range. It's really concerning. I think some of that has to do with what the offensive strategy is right now from Kramer as well. And once again, we're going to talk about that shortly.
Yeah. And before we get into more of the match, just so everyone's aware, obviously the English-speaking folks who understand us well, they're good, but we have a lot of German followers, of course. That's a German team. We've been adding German subtitles to our videos and stuff like that live during the watch-alongs, and then post-video, we'll add them in there as well. So, trying to get more people involved and listening to us as much as possible. But back into the game. Excuse me. Goal scoring started early. Demirovic, 9th minute, scores the goal. Pretty much poor marking at the hands of Martirciani, really, but just poor overall. It's something that kind of the ball from the right side over the top, backdoor, all first half they were doing it, and we were not sniffing it out. At least Martirciani wasn't. He scores the first goal there in that game. Poor way to start the first half.
Yeah, we've often played very compact and narrow defensively this season, and it's been interesting that more teams haven't tried to exploit those wide channels and just whip in crosses repeatedly. And it seemed like, especially in the first half, as you said, Augsburg was taking advantage of that with really quick switches of play. Yeah. Not always like crosses all the way across, but sometimes one quick pass backwards into the midfield and then to the other side. And for whatever reason, there were usually huge gaps there. Somebody was in space to receive it and do something with it. So, some disorganization at the back. I thought we looked awful defensively for most of the first half in particular. Couldn't settle down. And, it was a weird beginning to the match because I thought both teams actually looked decent offensively in the first, 10 minutes or so. But, especially because Vandenberg and Yoshida now have had, several games in a row together, correct?
Yeah.
This is not like a new pairing. You would hope
4 games at least.
Yeah, you would hope that, the chemistry would start getting there. And the back line looked very unsettled from the beginning.
I was laughing at Jacob's comments. He says, Martirciani had a tough game and finally looked like an old man on the pitch the way his hairline does. I couldn't help but laugh there. Martirciani had a tough game. And it got tougher for the team, Martirciani and company. 21st minute, Demirovic scores again. Counterattack this time. At this point, so I noticed in the game, every time Augsburg scored, we reacted well. We started the play of the pitch was all in our favor after that first goal, and then out of nowhere they hit us with a counterattack and poor defensive marking once again. Finds Demirovic in the middle, wide open, puts it past Schwolow. Schwolow, I'm going to blame on the first goal because he didn't even move in the first goal. Second goal, had really no shot. Pretty much a breakaway for Demirovic and put it away.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if Schwolow was like unsighted on the first goal, but if I remember correctly, I mean, whoever was marking him was Matriciani, whoever was kind of blocking off that near post angle. So if the shot's coming in, there's really only one way it's going to go, and Schwolow didn't even move. So yeah, I did think that was a pretty bad moment from him. That second goal, I think Matriciani may have jumped out to try to step to somebody and got played in behind. But I mean, that was a goal that came completely out of nowhere, and unfortunately, you had guys like Flick and Yoshida trying to chase after that who aren't necessarily the fastest, and it was just a quick ball in, and I mean it's a good hit. It's hit low with pace. It's hard for a goalkeeper to get down that quickly, but that's another one that isn't particularly close to the corner. I mean it's pretty close to Schwolow. You could maybe argue that he should have done better with that one as well. But yeah, pretty demoralizing because, as you said, despite that pretty bad opening goal that we conceded, I think we did respond relatively well. And in terms of what we were doing going forward, we looked okay, for the first part of that game. And then, right as we were looking like we were maybe changing the momentum of the match, we concede a second and suddenly find ourselves down 2-0. And yeah, just several really bad moments from the back line.
I'm trying to see when Vandenberg came on at 53rd. Oh, I thought it was a lot earlier than that. So never mind. Yeah, no, I agree about that. It was just completely, I guess, a run of the play on that goal, and down 2-0. Already down 1-0 was hard enough. We had to get the first goal in this game. This is a relegation 6-pointer for everything. That's what it's worth. Yes, they were like 12th, I think, at the time, only 3 points away from us. But we had to get the early goal. We've been struggling. We looked completely poor offensively against Dortmund, and we just gotta show something. We didn't go down 2-0 to a team like this at home. It's just pathetic. And then finally, a second goal, get another reaction from us. It took about 10 minutes or so, but Simon Terodde, it kind of all started with Thomas Ouwejan, I think, jumping up on a pass, intercepts it, makes a run, gives it to Terodde, who gives it to Drexler. Drexler smartly gives it back to Terodde, who does a nice chip shot. Doesn't look like he's lacking confidence, right? Past the goalie. Good to see the big man get his second goal of the season, but Drexler and Ouwejan get a lot of credit for that goal as well.
Yeah, mixed performance from Ouwejan, like we said. I think some of his crossing accuracy was kind of poor, and that was actually happened on this play as well. But overall, have to give him credit. It's a good sequence from Ouwejan. I think he intercepts like the first pass and kind of gets knocked back out to Augsburg, but then he intercepts the second pass in as well. Like he disrupts 2 consecutive passes in a row, runs up the field, plays it in. Terodde does a great job to adjust to that in the air. Takes a nice first touch, plays Drexler in, and then Drexler baits the goalkeeper to come out and challenging him, and then he knows exactly where Terodde is, finds the cutback, which is very well done. And then, I think it was Phil Bonney on the call, friend of the pod, right? As they pointed out in that, a couple of Augsburg players flying in his way, and he has the presence of mind to kind of get it high in the net and kind of chip it. It's very, very composed finish considering how quickly that ball came into him and how that, that quick give and go transpired. So nice to see Terodde score. We know that he has struggled to sort of replicate the returns that we were obviously seeing last year. We knew that was going to be the case. I think we were hoping that he was going to maybe be a little bit better than he has so far. But at the same time, as you already mentioned, the service has been a huge issue this season. It isn't that often that Toronto's had, clear-cut chances like that one, where somebody's putting it on a platter for him. They're often the ones being, played into initially and then bringing other people into the play, and then that final ball isn't coming back to them. So, but yeah, nice to see Toronto involved again, especially in front of the home crowd.
And that goal was huge because if we hadn't scored that goal, I mean, it could have been a damn broken if Augsburg scored that next goal. And so we scored that goal, made it 2-1 going into halftime. You mentioned that Bulter didn't have the greatest of first halves, and he came out at halftime. They brought in Salazar, which I was thinking down at 2-1, we need to make a substitution. But I was thinking, as much as I like Flick, not that he was doing bad, you need Kraus to stay in the game because Kraus is the one who's initiating all the shots initially, and Drexler's the playmaker all of a sudden. So I was saying take out Flick, bring on Salazar. They took out Bulter, who was having a poor game, and brought in Salazar. Thoughts on the substitution and then Bulter's play overall in the first half?
Yeah, well, honestly, when I was watching, so once again, this is another game where Salazar's not starting. This is a consistent run of games now where he's suddenly initially we thought it was rotation, that kind of a thing. It's pretty clear that he is not a first choice.
Did you hear Kramer's comments before the game too?
I didn't. What did he say?
So he was saying they're asking about the Salazar, why is he not starting? And he goes, well, there's a lot of things going on, and we're making sure it's nothing against him. He might be starting the lineup. Who knows? We'll see. Like, dude, Kramer has something against Salazar. It has to, because I mean, it doesn't make any sense why he doesn't start this guy. This guy
like
clearly is a difference maker on the team.
For sure. And it's been a consistent thing. And once again, I don't have an issue with him being a super sub necessarily in certain situations. I think he's a great guy to bring on with fresh legs in the second half, when the game opens up a little bit, which is kind of what we saw. But, as I was watching the first half, I was like, this game is crying out for Salazar, and he's on the bench right now.
Yeah.
We were struggling to build anything, and you need a player that can break a line of defense on the dribble. And, and draw additional defenders in to open up some additional spaces. And like, he can do that consistently so well, draw fouls, all those kinds of things. It really is important. Are there times where he frustrates me with his decision-making and other things? Of course. But like as you said, he has that X factor. He has an ability that basically no one else in our squad has consistently. He very much can fill that sort of Amin Harit role in terms of breaking that line, drawing fouls, getting us additional free kicks and opportunities in the final third. He's really important. So personally, I was actually a fan of the substitution. I thought Bolter had a very weak first half. I was wondering if they were going to take maybe even like Poulter out and then move Bolter up top and then put Salazar out wide. Not that Poulter had played overwhelmingly poorly in the first half or anything, but I was a fan of it personally.
Shout out to Amin Harit, goal and assist today in Marseille's victory in the Champions League, but that's another story. There. Overall first half, attacking players outside of Bolter, Toronto was okay. Obviously got the goal. Poulter was okay, lacking service still. Kraus was the best player in the match outside of Drexler. Drexler getting assists, and he got a second one later. But defensively, Matriciani was poor, I thought. The defense looked shaky all the way around. A lot of people on Reddit were talking about maybe it's time to sit Oyan and bring on more. And I'm thinking, why not play both, right? Play more in midfield, play Oyan on defense, and that way you can have both guys taking their chances on the left wing.
Yeah, we did talk about that a couple pods ago. Maybe look at a stack of both of them, more slightly higher up the pitch, that kind of thing. I think that would be interesting to see at some point. I actually think we probably will see that at some point. Although maybe it's a situation where Kramer views them as like for like sub, and so wants one of them available for fresh legs and wouldn't risk it. But you also have Chananoglu, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that you just want to have so many of your pictures.
Yeah, that's even more reason to start them both, because you can bring on Chalanoglu for one of them if they get tired. That's
what I mean. So there are ways you could do that. I don't know if it's that important to try to do that. But Moore obviously has the ability to play in a lot of accurate balls from wide areas too.
Yeah.
And considering how much we struggle to build anything centrally at the moment, that's where a lot of our opportunities are going to come from. Or that are transition moments, which continue to be, I think, where we look most dangerous when we have some improvised sequences, because whatever our default buildup is supposed to be, in terms of what Kramer's telling us, it's not resulting in anything.
Yeah. 100%. Well, Salazar came on at halftime, and with the first 5-10 minutes, he looked good. It's like, okay, good to see him on there. And then he disappears. And I didn't know it until today, but after the game, I'm like, what the hell happened to Salazar? He just disappeared from the game. Now we know what happened. He got injured. And that's kind of why his performance sucked. But he came on at halftime, struggled for majority of the second half, I thought. Then Vandenberg, a couple minutes after that, in the 53rd minute, he goes down, rolled his ankle really bad, ends up tore some ligaments in his leg. Salazar's also had some surgery today for ligaments that he tore his
metatarsal fracture, I think.
Metatarsal fracture, yeah, and had surgery.
I don't know exactly what minute he injured that foot, but I actually saw him pull up, I think as early as the 48th minute. So shortly after he had come on the field at halftime, I saw him pull up, kind of limp on a certain play, and then he kind of played through it.
Yeah,
but there was at least one moment where he looked like
he was shaky. Good.
Yeah, I think he had some moments at certain times, once again drawing fouls, sure. and in transition moments, progressing the ball. But yeah, maybe not the most as impactful as I would have expected. I think part of that too is just how quickly the game devolved into later in the match. But yeah, then the Vandenberg thing, it's just super unfortunate. It's not him going in for a tackle, really. It's not a challenge.
Rolled his ankle.
It's just a freak thing where he rolls his ankle, and you saw it on the replay. It's not just that he rolled it; it's that he bent it pretty significantly.
Yeah, I've done that before. It hurts.
I was wondering if it was broken potentially. It was not a good situation. So unfortunately, both those guys are going to be out for the remainder of the calendar year. Correct?
Yep, through 2022.
Yeah, and that's a horrible news. Obviously, nothing needs to be said about Salazar. We know how important he is and what he brings to the team and why it's bad to lose him. But as far as Vandenberg goes, with the departures of Itakura, Malik Chow, it was on Kabak as well, technically.
Yeah.
Vandenberg was brought in for additional reinforcement, and then ultimately given the starting job too, along Yoshida recently. And now with him out, we have Grimal came in, and then we have
Kaminsky's out there somewhere.
Kaminsky, and then beyond that, like there really isn't any other center back I think on the senior squad at the moment. So we have we have a starting pairing, and then like one other person. And after that, we're dipping into potentially youth teams. I'm not sure who else we have at the moment. So that's going to be something I'm sure we're going to be looking to reinforce in the winter transfer window. But we have quite a ways to get to before we get there. So that's a highly unfortunate sequence of injuries there.
And then about a 10-minute span, things got really good for us, right? Tom Kraus scores a goal, set up by Drexler again. Drexler, the playmaker, 2 assists in this game, man of the match for me. Kraus, close second. Good to see Kraus. Kraus was fired up from the beginning of this game. He was the only one getting shots early on, and then nice to see him get a goal. Got fortunate with the bounce, but good to see him get a goal. He deserved it, and he was celebrating like no other. Is that his first
points
goal
to the crest immediately.
Yeah,
I think it may have been. I don't think he scored yet. I maybe I forgot one, but he points to the crest. I mean, to do that in front of the home fans, I'm sure he's pretty excited and impressive. We talk about in that pairing, he tends to be the one that marauds forward more than Florian Flick does. In that situation, he makes sort of an overlapping run to the outside, almost like like a left back would do or something like that from central midfield. And get off the shoulder. Drexler kind of hesitates and waits for the right moment and whips a quick pass into his feet. And it's deflected by the goalkeeper. I think it was on target anyway. I don't know if it would have been saved if it had gone directly, but it's at least it's an on target shot. And the funny thing is we had more than 15 shots in this game. 17. Very few of them on target. Yeah. And outside of the goals from the 2 players, I think the only other on target shots we had were also from Tom Kraus. Who was delivering some hard low shots that at least required goalkeeper saves, and nothing else was really anywhere near troubling anybody. So Tom Kraus continues to be an extremely influential loan signing, and one of our best players this season overall.
William from Schalke Canada says Vandenberg continues the curse of new players we acquire that end up on long-term injuries. It's true.
Lee Dong, right? Players like that. Also, I love Kraus firing up the crowd. There's always like three or four moments though in the match too where he's specifically and they respond to it. So it's nice to have somebody who's on loan kind of acting as your emotional leader on the pitch. It's an extra nice boost to have. So
absolutely. And then to make things better, we thought Berisha gets a red card. This game got really feisty, especially at the end. There was a little bit of almost a fight at the end, but Berisha got involved, ends up getting a red card. I don't know if it was second yellow or just a straight up red, but he elbows, second yellow, elbows Yoshida in the face. It's a foul.
Yeah, aerial challenge that he goes in with an arm, hits him in the face. It's not like the hardest contact or like the most egregious thing you've seen, but it's one of those ones where you can't really complain if the ref decides to give you a yellow for it, and he does. But as you said, it was feisty. I think there was a scuffle after Terada's first goal before the game was even tied. There was
involved too.
There.
Yeah,
for sure. Terada got a yellow card, I think, after that.
Yes.
Tempers flaring, a little bit physical. I think part of the problem was it seemed to me as though the official was letting a lot go, like from the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things that typically would have been fouls, with pretty rough contact. He was just kind of letting them play on. And even when it was changes in possession and everything. And so I think sometimes when you do that, it can kind of encourage players to do more of that. And then tempers can flare and that sort of thing. So I don't know.
So that play, when Terada scored his goal, he gets a yellow. Berisha gets a yellow. Bulter gets a yellow. Berisha got his second yellow against Yoshida and gets a red card in the 70th minute. And so I'm thinking, here we go. We got to man up, keep doing what we've been doing for the last 20 minutes or so, and we should be sitting pretty here. And of course not. We're Schalke.
You were 2-0 down. You bring it back. Then you get the man advantage in front of the home crowd. You have to be thinking hey, this is like a gift. Like we have to go on and win this. We had a man advantage recently, though, and did not take advantage of it already. So this is a recurring trend now. And, unfortunately, it was Augsburg that struck first, despite us having, once again, a couple more good minutes of where it was looking like we were potentially going to make a breakthrough there.
Yeah, Dirk's favorite player, Hahn, scores a header on his 250th appearance in the Bundesliga. 3-2 at that point, and we tried as we might, but we couldn't. End of the game, there was some scuffle between Ginkiewicz and Terada. Ginkiewicz kind of, after the whistle, some Schalke fans were throwing things into the field, and Ginkiewicz is kind of encouraging it because he was by the goal and trying to encourage it, and Terada's trying to get him out of there, and they started getting a fight, and got a little feisty there at the end, as did all game long. But 3-2, horrible loss. You mentioned it. I mean, 17 shots, but not many on target. I put the XGs down there just for you, but 2.07 is our XG. So we got 2 goals. They had 0.88 and had 3 goals. I mean, all their goals were preventable. The Han goal completely unmarked. Both Demirovic goals. The first goal, Matriciani should have marked them. Second goal, Yoshida was poorly marking. Flick was poorly marking on that as well. Or maybe Flick was poorly marking on the last goal, Han's goal. But poor defensively.
I mean, you can argue. I mean, yeah, Flick probably could have run in front of his man rather than behind. Was maybe a little bit late getting into the box there as well on that third goal. And then Yoshida.
And it's his turnover too.
I don't really know. I mean, I wasn't really sure who Yoshida was marking, and I do think he should have been able to step back in the direction of that ball quicker than he did. I don't know if that's like, the older knees not responding, so he's just gonna have to like throw a leg at it rather than like, kind of like, shuffle or jostle or whatever. And
right.
I don't know. Very bad outing for Yoshida. Although I will say, the more I watched that play, the more I think it was just a really well timed and well delivered ball.
Han's goal?
Yeah, than anything. Like, the more I watch it, the more I feel like it's almost harsh to criticize the Schalke players too much for that. I think the first 2 ones are much more deserving of criticism. But yeah, I mean, I think there's things you could say about multiple players on multiple goals that they could have done better there. So disappointing to see that. We had been relatively okay defensively outside of that one big loss that we had early in the season. But this is not a good data point. We have I think we're tied for the second worst goal difference.
And that was at home too, right? I guess Union Berlin.
Yeah. So, poor. Quick shout out to Terada though. Almost had the 3rd goal before Augsburg scored.
Yeah.
Iden came into the game from Matriciani. Matriciani, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not going to rag on Matriciani. I don't think any of us think he should be starting anyway. Did not have a good game. One of his poor outings. Iden came in. I thought looked significantly better. Accurate. Wide ball delivery, good bend on him and everything. Played a nice ball. Terada was miles offside, but it was a nice ball. And then Terada ran on it, chipped the keeper, crossed the line. Unfortunately, it was offside, but that could have been the win for us there. Fine, not really fine margins. Terada was offside by a decent way, but another good moment of like Terada knowing where the goal is, knowing how much time he has, and taking a clever touch. He looked decent today when he actually had service and opportunities.
Yeah, and I think the times that the big guys got service, they looked decent together. It looked like they're feeding off each other. Poulter and Torta kept trying to find each other with flick on headers and stuff like that. So it could be good, but right now Kramer doesn't seem to have any kind of functional system. It's so disorganized, and normally we are disorganized going forward, but defensively, I mean, it's the whole game. It was disorganized, and I mean, if you're neutral, it's probably fun to watch the game because it was such a track meet. But I know I was having heart palpitations. I'm sure anybody watching, both Schalke fans and Augsburg fans, were just like, what is going on in this madness?
I mean, no, the game plan is absurd at the moment. We attempted more passes of a distance greater than 30 yards than we did of a distance between 5 and 15 yards.
It's stupid.
That's FBref data, but that is an absurd game plan. And I mean, it's one. So and the other interesting thing too is you have this dual pairing up top, right? Of these 2 kind of like big strong men strikers, target men type people or whatever. Neither of them won more than 60% of their aerial duels in this game. I think they were both in the 50%. So it's not even as if they're giving you a significant advantage when you're hoofing those long balls to them. They're not winning enough of those to make it any more than sort of a 50-50 proposition as to whether or not you're going to maintain possession. It's not a sustainable or effective game plan in my opinion at the moment. I mean, the people in the chat have been mentioning it already. The aimless long balls all day. That's absolutely correct. I mean, you can look at the stats in terms of like, once again, the distances that we attempted, and like such a significant percentage of our passes are these long balls. Last comment, Shvalov, right? His short and medium passes, 100% pass completion in this game. His long passes, like that's where it gets ugly, and that's part of the issue for everybody. Is everyone is attempting these, and it's not. Yeah, it's one thing if you can consistently get them into big bodies that can control it and then bring people into play, but Terada and Poulter are not doing that, and Terada has consistently been poor at aerial duels this season.
This is one of his better games, and he still only got 50%. He's usually close to 20%.
Yeah, he has. I mean, like, I don't know why we haven't seen that in the data and kind of gotten away from it at this point. I think we need to find other ways to get those guys involved than what we're doing at the moment. Yeah, the offensive. I mean, yeah, Kramer's just kind of throwing darts at the board, it appears like, at the moment. And I don't really know how to describe it besides that.
I was railing on this on the watch along. It was that, like, neither of us are top analysts in this business, right? We're not. We're just fans that like watching the game. And we can see that. I mean, Helen Keller and Frank could see that those long passes aren't working. Why the hell are we going for these long ass balls? They don't work. Try the medium range ones or the short ones. They're much more successful. And maybe there's no confidence in the play out ability of the defenders. I don't know what it is, but it's aimless turnovers. I mean, countless turnovers game in and game out because we're just giving the long ball away, and it's almost guaranteed that they're going to get the ball. It just changes possession. It ruins any kind of flow that we have. It's so infuriating.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating. It doesn't seem to matter, like, like what personnel we have, or who the coach is. It's like the last few seasons when we've been in the Bundesliga, we're just inept at building out of the back.
Yeah.
And at times last year we were too, despite what the success of that campaign ultimately was. We just really seem to struggle with anything in possession. It's all of it, just route run football, and we're not doing it well either. It's not even as if it's like, hey, this is actually relatively effective for us. So even if it might not be the ideal way we'd like to play, at least we're getting something out of it. And I don't feel like we have overall. We're not scoring enough goals at the moment.
Yeah, no,
from that
we're not.
And not generating high percentage chances. I mean, there was one play in this game. I think it was from a kick, a goal kick from Schwalov over the top that fell to Drexler that he just skied over the ball. That could have been on target. But like that's the first time anything like that has happened this season at all, and the only time that happened in this game. So it's not as if it's like consistently generating those kind of chances for us.
Agree about that. Now, so a lot of questions are going to be asked of this team. I mean, first, let's look at the major one, which is the two injuries in front of us. Kaminsky recently had an operation, I think back in September, a minor calf surgery, but he's on the mend. We don't know when he'll be back. Now, Vandenberg's gone for the rest of 2022, as is Salazar. Now, it's like, what do we do now with that? And then on the bigger picture, what does Kramer do? I mean, his seat has been hot since the beginning, but I mean, he doesn't get results here in the next few weeks. He needs to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're one spot above the relegation zone, I think, at this point. There's times where it's looked like we're almost on the cusp of breaking into like decent form, but it hasn't consistently been there. And so we'll have like a decent performance mixed with a pretty bad one. This was a very disappointing one once again to not, for the second time this season, be able to take advantage of a man advantage. When it's one thing if you can see a game plan in place offensively that maybe it's not going to work consistently every week. Like there's going to be ebbs and flows to that kind of thing. But last match against Dortmund, despite the difference in the class of the opponent, we were inept going forward and inept in possession. And then in this game against an opponent that you would hope you could be a little bit more competitive with, like that's how we're trying to play against like an Augsburg. Like if that's our game plan, I mean that looks like it's like a Bayern game plan is what it seems like. Is like get the ball away from our final third so they can't like counter press us or and that kind of stuff.
It worked for Augsburg against Bayern, so Augsburg must be better than Bayern, right?
Yeah, I mean it just so I don't know. Yeah, but it just when you're playing an opponent like that, who once again people want to call these relegation 6-pointers. I mean whatever, but like that's just disheartening if that's kind of like how speculative and optimistic we have to be in terms of what we're trying to do on the pitch, and just like long balls and let's see what happens. It's we need to have a little bit more substance to our play than that. And then particularly late in the second half once this game really opened up and after we had gone down 3-2, you would think with a man advantage they're going to have difficulty shadowing us and marking us across the pitch, and we should be able to pass through them easier and pass around them. And we just seem to become completely disinterested in that. And it was just like hoofballs again and again down the pitch, kind of bailing them out, and not really allowing us to create the numerical advantages that we may have in those situations. So I don't know. I just thought it was really frustrating.
And it's a team that we should be able, like you said, pass through. I mean, had we won the game, we would have been in 12th position, which is a good spot to be in. But we played, like you said, like they're Bayern. And then now coming up this weekend, we got a team. Yes, technically it's a relegation 6-pointer, but it's Bayer Leverkusen. They're uber talented. Are we going to expect more of the same against a team that's below us? I mean, this is what Kramer has to figure something out now, or like Jacob says, or like we says, time for the soul patch to go. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when Bruner's going to be fit again. He will help immensely. He has been practicing. I know William is saying the same thing too, but Kramer has to figure this out. Because it's not working at the moment. It's not, and you had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. That was what you had.
That's a fair point too, as well. International break, and that's kind of what you come up with in terms of a game plan for Augsburg. That is a little bit disappointing. Since we're talking about Brunner, who I think obviously we all want to be fit again once again, just because at least it's defensively solid for the most part. But like, what were your thoughts on Aiden? First time we finally saw him, he's been playing with the youth team. I mean, that was his first cameo. Hasn't had a start. Hasn't even had a substitute appearance. I was really pleased to see him. Yeah, I thought he was lively once again. I think we should be seeing more of him on the pitch. Personally,
I agree. We've been screaming for him.
I mean, like,
since the beginning of the season.
Last
year he was good.
Yeah, and once again, I know there's concerns potentially about like his size and getting like little brother at times and out physicaled. He does look like he's beefed up a little bit. He's still a shorter guy and everything, but like he's so quick though. He's his feet and everything. So I think he has the ability to kind of dribble out of some of those situations and not always get into those physical battles. I don't know. I would like to see more of him. But
I agree 100%. Brunner does bring a defensive responsibility and calmness out there, but I then immediately felt his impact getting involved in the offensive side, getting the crosses in, nearly got the goal to Kuroda with the one that was offsides. And yeah, he was involved, and I like what I saw from him for sure. He definitely needs an opportunity to play this, and yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. This whole thing is just frustrating, I guess. I don't know. But if you're frustrated as we are, there is a chance to voice your opinion. There's a members only Congress coming up here in the 11th of a week from now of October. So there you go. Have your say if you want to unleash your frustrations. I know there's a lot of people that are frustrated about it. It's just the whole Kramer doesn't have a game plan. He needs to figure something out. I know they're working on it, but excuses. I'm tired of these excuses.
Oh, and just a huge missed opportunity. I mean, that's all it is.
Yes.
Like, that's a game that you have to find a way to get that third goal in there. And if you can't do that, you certainly can't lose that game.
No.
And we unfortunately did. And yeah, once again, in front of the home crowd, very bad. And that's one that's going to shorten the leash considerably if it wasn't already getting in that direction.
Yeah. Let me
need a response.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Game against Leverkusen is on the 8th, 4 days from now. Yeah, they're sitting second from the bottom of the table, but again, they're very talented. Can they continue their poor form? Absolutely, but our luck, they'll probably fix it during us. They may get a new manager. I'm sure if they lose, they're going to get a new manager, probably get a new manager no matter what. And then we got Hoffenheim after that. Hoffenheim's a team that we should be able to play well against. I know they're 5th, but, there's a team that we should be able to figure out, I think. I mean, Kramer needs to, for his sake, because if he wants any kind of longevity to his career, he needs to find a way to get results in this. I mean, I'm looking at the statistics so far this year. Our average possession is 42% in a game. We got 17 yellows. Trying to see what else here is. Only 10 goals, 3 penalties given up, or I guess we had 3 penalties for us. These are just poor stats, honestly. Come on, Bundesliga. Killing me. Anyway, some bright news real quick. Tom Kraus, Rookie of the Month. Good for him. Good month. I mean, he's been our best player. Someone wants to say someone's better than him, let me know. But Kraus has been our best player this season so far. Drexler, close second, in my opinion. Thoughts on him receiving the Rookie of the Month?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, happy for him. I mean, he's the kind of player that you hope that we would be able to secure permanently or find a way to keep, because obviously he would seems like he would potentially like to be here, or is at least at a minimum enjoying his time here while he gets the opportunity to. I don't think it's likely that we're going to be get him from Leipzig, particularly if he continues just to play well. But yeah, I've definitely been a big fan of him so far. I think it's well deserved. And
Jacob says Hoffenheim only had 150 fans show up at their away game against Berlin. Sham club. Yeah, hey, we're not playing the fans, we're playing the teams, and unfortunately our team is pretty shambolic at the moment. So all right, let's get into some listener questions, Jack. Let's see. First one is from Edwin, good friend of the show. Edwin says, how much at risk is Kramer given that the next match is a relegation 6-pointer? Or we say that with quotations because it's Leverkusen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say that who the next opponent is a significant factor in the development of Kramer's hot seat. I think it's just the fact that we're one spot above the relegation zone now. We have a lot of underlying statistics that are not promising for us. We have very bad goal difference as well. I mean, the last couple games we've really struggled to look like we have any sort of like, offensive philosophy or game plan. And I mean, even though we scored 2 goals in this game, but once again, that wasn't really as a result of our possession play. Those were both of those were transition moments, honestly, which is what I've been saying all season too, is that's when we look more dangerous, is when we get out of whatever it is typically that Kramer wants us to be doing. And the players, have a little bit of space to improvise and kind of move into different areas of the pitch. I mean, like the second goal was created by Terada, pulling off of his run and getting into space, and that kind of a thing. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the results have been poor for a while now. Hasn't been a ton of development. Hasn't been completely atrocious. Like there have been decent moments and decent performances this season, but it's a question of how long Schroeder's really willing to continue with this. And given the financial situation, I'm sure we're always going to be hesitant to fire another coach and add yet another, potential like contract to be paid out.
Yeah, Gramozzi's got a job, right? Is he the manager over at Bochum?
I didn't even see that happened finally.
I think someone said that he's no longer on our books, so I think he got picked up. I think by Bochum, but I'm not sure. We got to look.
That would be huge if that did happen. I'll check that right now.
You brought the managers up, and we always seem to pick these currently managers who are just guys who are like scruff around the relegation zone, and we try to put our hopes on them. And a lot of it has to do with how much money we have, which is basically none. So that's a lot to do with it. But eventually we need to find we tried with Tedesco a couple years ago, an upstart kid that we can try to hopefully have a good career with, and then but I don't know, just the people we've been picking lately for a while now, even well before Schroeder, have all been poor. We just got to get out of that funk of picking managers that don't work out for us. And hey, Kramer may work out for us. He may work out for us for sure, but it just seems like the same terrible trend over and over again. It just patching things up when you need a whole overhaul with the manager. But anyway, I digress. Moving on to questions. I have the same answer for you in terms of the Leverkusen question there. So this one is definitely for you. DeSanto or Poulter?
Poulter.
I agree.
Poulter. That question. No.
Yeah, no, I agree. Poulter seems like he can do some things for us. He's got to get service. Again, him and Terodde, they need service. And, the times that do have service, like we saw in the Terodde goal, looks good. Times when we can't even get the ball to him, like the Dortmund game, looks terrible. So, but yeah, I take Poulter all day.
Your analysis is very specific to the traits and abilities of Poulter. My analysis is that the other option is DeSanto, which is why I did not choose that option.
I know. Eric says Tom Krause outside chance of going to the World Cup. That'd be cool. Him and Terodde.
Just trying to make the Terodde thing happen.
We went from goatee Gramotzis to soul patch Kramer.
Hey, this is a facial hair friendly podcast, by the way. If you can tell by the host. So
you're not hosted by Manscaped. Not yet.
There you go. Yeah.
We might have to shave though if that's the case. Moving on. Next question. Why does Mollett not play? Do you want to take this one first?
I mean, I think you could ask that question of a lot of people. Donnie Latz or other other people. I don't know. I personally haven't been particularly overwhelmed by Mollett in the appearances that he's made. Mostly, limited cameos, though they have been. There are some people that they'll come on the pitch and then you'll say like, hey, I really want to see more of him based on a couple of flashes here and there. I haven't really gotten that sense from Mollett yet. I mean, if he is kind of a little bit more of like a creative presence potentially, certainly can't really argue against needing that at the moment, given the way things are. And now also with Salazar being injured, I think there may be more opportunities for like a super sub Mollett as opposed to Salazar. Exactly. Yeah, that kind of a thing. So I think you actually may see more of him, but I don't necessarily think his performances have demanded it up to this point.
Now, I don't remember if it was Kramer or Schroeder, but they said that this is their words now, that Mollett needs time to adapt to the team. Anytime you have a new player coming to a team, there's a grace period where they have to get used to the way the club run. That's what they said. I don't know if I buy that necessarily.
Which is why they started Vandenberg like 3 days after he arrived at the club. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So I don't buy that. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something they're not seeing in practice or they can't figure out where to play him because Krause and Flick are playing so well, or I don't know. I mean, Drexler's been pretty lights out this year for us. Krause as well. Flick now has kind of inserted himself in that role. Boulter's been a lock. He's got leading goal scorer in the team. So hard to fit him in their starting lineup, but doesn't mean he can't be on the coming as a substitution. Obviously, Salazar's one. We got a lot of midfielders. We're midfielder heavy, not necessarily good, but it's midfielder heavy, I think. So it's hard for someone like Millet. I mean, I'd love to see him more just to see what he can do. Like you, I haven't seen anything yet, but again, it's only been cameos, so it's really hard to judge someone. I mean, Larson, now we kind of got a good idea. We've seen couple good starts, or couple starts, I should say. We kind of know what we got with him, but yeah, Millet, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think there's a lot of guys like I would put Larson in that camp well, despite him getting more playing time so far, who I don't really think have done anything to really put their stamp on things. Here's a quick question from me to you, and not from Reddit to us or for anybody else. What are your thoughts on potentially like Krall as a center back? Has he played that previously? I feel like he may have.
He may have
briefly. Certainly has like the size and the willingness to get into like obnoxious challenges to potentially play. But I'm just wondering. I know we're thin at the moment. Like potentially he could be an option.
He's a body that could do it. I think he could. Again, he's just a yellow card waiting to happen. We have to worry about. But if he can corral that, I know Victor Paulson went from midfield to defense. I think even though he may have been a center back anyway by trade, but he did that seamlessly. It seems like,
and it could be a way to get him involved, because I know that he's probably pretty upset about it. After starting the season, kind of as a starting midfield presence, being on the bench, for a while since then. So
yeah. So it's not a bad shout. In the chat, Jacob says CD Sane debut incoming. Not with Kramer.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him. We would love to see him, but I mean, he's been called up a couple times to the bench, but yeah, I don't know.
Although to be fair, I just don't know if like that's the kind of player we're actually needing right now in terms of it. Because like the other options that we have, I mean, like you still like Bolter, you still like Drexler. At least I think you should like Drexler with how he's been playing. Yeah. There aren't that many natural people that you'd be like, hey, get rid of this person, put City Sane on. So I don't know, but obviously you and I think are all going to be open to promoting and giving youth a chance.
Just win, baby. Just win, baby. That's the most important thing. Let's see. Next one comes from Front Cheesecake. After 8 games, does Kramer still fit into Schalke's vision for the season? That's something you have to ask Rowan Schroeder. I think the goal, the vision is staving off relegation, right? That's all of our goals. Are we technically in line with that? Yes, because we're one spot above the relegation. But, I mean, last year we played attractive football, and yes, I get it. We are in another division now. It should be harder. But I've seen nothing outside of Dortmund that there was a game that I didn't think we could have played with anybody. If we played our game like last year, I think we would have been fine this year. But we haven't done it yet. Granted, it's a new manager, but I don't know. It just, to me, I say no. It doesn't fit the vision, but it's ultimately Schroeder's opinion, and I would guess he would say yes, especially it's because it's his guy. Jack?
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think some of the comments that Schroeder's made about him in the past is that, he's a steady hand. He thinks he can get him organized, and we'll tell players what they're doing wrong, but also kind of give them ways that they can improve.
Yeah.
So there's like constructive feedback. I think he likes it about him, but I mean, that's all well and good. But like if it turns out that he's not a steady hand, then sort of that entire calculation changes pretty quickly. And yeah, I don't know if I'm at the point yet to say this is like his appointment's been like a total disaster or anything, but it certainly hasn't. I don't think we've shown that many signs of improving. We're just sort of like generally inconsistent and like maybe good enough to hang on and maybe not. And I haven't really seen any sort of like steady building in anything. If anything, we've kind of been going in the wrong direction a little bit recently. So yeah, this Leverkusen game I think is going to be important. If it's a bad loss, even though Leverkusen has a squad that I think people believe is capable of achieving things, much greater than what they're, in line to do at the moment. I think if it's a bad loss against the relegation team, that Kramer could be in trouble pretty quickly. But that's also going to depend once again on Schroeder's willingness to pull the trigger on his hire, and also our, the financial realities of what's going on. But
yeah,
give it Buskins to the end of the season. Just kidding. Yeah, no, I can bring that back, but
that'd be interesting though if it did do that. Because one, not that it would be a bad idea, but then the question is, why the hell didn't you hire him in the first place? Right? That would be the question.
Did he say he didn't want it? Like he didn't even want the job, but yeah.
Probably. But still. I understand why he wouldn't take it, but yeah.
What's Jens Keller up to these days? No, I'm just kidding.
At least you can say Hoop Stevens. Hoop Stevens has already turned us down last year or 2 years ago, I should say. So, that's how bad it's getting. So, anyway, that's all the questions. Anything else you want to chat about tonight? Because we've been pretty long. We went through a lot.
No, yeah. I mean, a lot of talking points in this game, from the injuries to, disappointment over what's transpiring. Final thoughts are just that need to see a coherent strategy in place offensively sooner rather than later. I'm still holding out hope that defensively we're okay and that this was, performance was kind of an aberration. But, if you have too many of those over the course of the season, it's not going to go well for you. But, got to find ways to get service to our strikers. Got to find ways to, build more effectively in possession and not just relying on those transition moments. Then, hopefully guys like Owian can start delivering more consistent crosses as well, and we figure out our right back situation, because that's been the problem. You've had an inconsistent Owian, and then you've had a rotating cast of right backs who are not particularly offensive minded, which is probably not helping things either. So a lot of question marks at the moment. Not in full blown panic mode, but definitely a little bit off the pace that I was hoping we'd be able to achieve at this point, and that's making me a little bit nervy because we're very close to the relegation zone.
When's the next international break?
Whenever the World Cup is, probably.
Yeah, World Cup is end of November. That's when the break is, or something like that. So
yeah, it starts in November, I believe.
Yeah, we got about 2 months worth left of games here, a month and a half here. So yeah, I don't got much else left for tonight. Went through a lot, like you said, a lot of talking points. Let's win. I agree. Please, that's all I have left. That's all I have left. Yeah, we need to win. I curse more watching Schalke than anything other time during the days. So, but the joys of doing the watch along. If you haven't yet partaken it with us, it's definitely fun times. It's good to have bond with misery sometimes. All right, Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
At JM Mangan, JMMANGAN on Twitter.
Hey,
continuing that perfect streak.
Maybe you're the next manager. You can find me. You can find me at R_KHARMAN. Chat. Thank you again. What a wonderful job always is with the questions and everything. Everyone who provided questions with Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, everything like that. Thank you all. And thank you for being a Schalke fan. It's not easy, is it? It's not easy for us, but we live on. We struggle on. So, all right. For Jack, for Richard, catch you on the watch along. Glück auf.